The infamous emergency fund, the one financial tool that the vast majority of financial professionals and the entire finance industry agrees that pretty much everybody should have in place before they get any further into their finances in reference to investing or even any significant borrowing, which I do agree as well. What I do want to challenge in this video is how emergency fund is defined and why I would break it out into two different categories and two different savings, how to build each savings, and just an overall philosophy on why, not to complicate your finances, but to help you have a different perspective around it so you can hopefully have a more effective saving strategy. Because emergency funds look different per person, and I want to break them out into two different segments, if you will, so that way you can take two different approaches without draining yourself in the process of trying to build these emergency funds. We're going to cover that in this video. This is JP from Blueprint for Prosperity, helping you to increase your net worth through relationship banking, the maximizing of your borrow capacity, the proper use of life insurance, and the ownership of real estate. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm uploading content on a daily basis to help you customize your blueprint for prosperity. So the emergency fund is typically going to be the old fund that many people refer to in the finance space. It's basically going to be the lump sum of money you put up in case you lose your job, car breaks down, medical emergency, natural disaster comes along, blah, blah, blah. Anything unexpected, large expense, replacing appliances, fixing parts on the home, you name it, some unexpected, unplanned expense that you need to take care of and don't want to go into debt trying to do. So it's very obvious that this is a very valuable financial tool that everybody should have. I do agree with that. Where I do defer or have a separate philosophy financially around the emergency fund is that I believe it should be broken off into two different segments. You planning to save for an emergency unemployment scenario should be a different psychology and strategy to some degree than saving for, let's say, a natural disaster emergency, evacuation, car breaking down. These things should be a bit different in my perspective. They should be two different saving strategies and actually two different lump sums of money. I'm going to quickly break down why I see it that way. And then I'm going to give you a breakdown on a strategy that you can potentially implement or should consider when creating your emergency fund or restructuring your emergency fund if you already have one. So I look at your emergency fund in two different segments. Number one being income replacement. This is going to basically be strictly focused around, if I lose my primary source of income tomorrow, this is the lump sum of money I'm going to survive off of until I can replace that income or reinstitute that income. This fund, in my opinion, should be at bare minimum 6 months. I would actually argue that it should be somewhere between 1 and 2 years. And the reason for that is you want to ideally put yourself in a position, if you lose your income, to be able to sustain your lifestyle while being able to make sure that you don't damage your career or potentially even investments in the long term by making short-term emotional decisions. A 3 to 6 month emergency fund is what's typically recommended by financial professionals and specialists all over the place. You see it marketed and advertised everywhere. 3 to 6 months, I feel like it's more of a psychology that's put out there because it's more attainable for people and it's more digestible. In reality, 3 to 6 months is this, especially when you're unemployed. 3 months can go by in no time. Sometimes you can go from an interview process, onboarding process, before you actually can get on payroll and start training and getting actually on the job can be 3 months by itself, depending on your career and the employer. So that's something to think about. You literally can run out of your money in the midst of getting a job. It's important to not be in a situation where you have to worry about feeding yourself or your family while looking for work or replacing an income and having that money run out before you can put an effective plan in place. You might end up jumping career paths. You may end up switching careers altogether, taking a job that you don't have long-term plans on sticking out, meaning that you're going to disrupt your career or disrupt your retirement savings or retirement investments rather, this can have a really strenuous effect on you. And this is why I personally recommend, as a financial professional, a banker, that you need to consider having a year to 2 years in an emergency fund when it comes to your income replacement segment. That's my philosophy on it. You need to look at your own particular situation and think about your risk tolerance. You may not be somebody who has to worry about that based on your career. You know you can replace your job in 2 or 3 months or whatever the case may be, or you have other family support. You have other things going on where you feel confident you don't need to save that much money to support yourself or your family if ish hits the fan. But many of you, 1 to 2 years is a level of peace of mind that could go a long way for you. If you think about how rough things can get economically, how uncertain it can be, the career path you're in, and what type of vulnerability can be there in getting a job, the onboarding of that job, 1 to 2 years puts you in a position where you are not growing gray hairs or hairs falling out, or out there again doing who knows what to try to make an income in the short term because you're in a desperate situation. So that's my first perspective, and I'm going to dive right into the saving strategy. I feel like that should be put in place there. This should be a pretty aggressive saving strategy. This should be something that you should make a pretty primary focus, building out your finances. And if you're already pretty deep into your financial journey as an adult, then maybe you need to focus on, if you are not somewhere in the proximity of a year or so on savings in this arena, you might want to pause whatever you're doing, wherever that money is going at the moment, and consider putting that in place. Again, unless you feel that confident that you're not going to run into a scenario where you could be out of work beyond a 6-month window of time. I believe this needs to be a very aggressive strategy. You know, you're saving 10, 15, maybe even 20% of your income until you can, or more, until you can reach that 1 year to 2 year mark, depending on where your income is, of course. This is something that you need to take very seriously, and it probably needs to be saved somewhere that's going to get reasonable earnings. This still could be a deposit product. It doesn't necessarily have to be invested in the market. That's your choice. But I think this needs to be something that's continuously growing, even once you put that goose egg to the side. The second segment that I find to be relevant and separate is a survival or prepper fund. This is going to be a lot more to those really unexpected natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, the brush fires, that's going on like in California, the civil unrest that takes place in some regions or some areas and really affects or messes up the infrastructure in a particular area. There's so many different scenarios that seem to be getting a little bit more prevalent and common across the globe, across our country. And I think this needs to be a separate fund, because you could end up in a scenario where you have income support in a natural disaster, but may not have on-hand cash for survival until you have, that financial support kick in, for instance, in the short term. So I feel like this is enough to validate 2 different saving strategies. And I also don't feel like your prepper survival fund needs to be as big. You don't need a year's of savings to evacuate for a hurricane or house you and your family if a tornado hits an area and wipes out your home or significantly damages your home. Civil unrest breaks out in the area and you need to clear out to protect yourself and your family, or at least get them to safety for a few weeks until things calm down. This could be a scenario where you need to prepare for maybe, a week or two's worth of hotel rooms, an unexpected flight across the country if you need to get to some family or friends that are across the country that can house you, but you have to still get there. Or maybe get a rental car or rent an RV if you want to go that route. This can be more of a scenario maybe where you have $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 put up that you can access immediately and cover until FEMA kicks in, or your job's financial support kicks in, or payroll boost, or whatever income that comes in that you are going to use to help sustain and survive that emergency kicks in. You can cover it without going into debt or pulling your hair out or going half broke or having subpar accommodations because you didn't have the money, and it's like the hotel room you're in is crap, or the flight is really uncomfortable, or you can barely accommodate your family, or whatever the case may be. You want to try to make this as settling and not as nerve-wracking as you possibly can, right? When you experience something like this, it's already usually traumatic. You're looking for the type of funds that can help you travel if you need to travel, accommodate yourself, your family, your loved ones in relative comfort for an extended period of time until some kind of support can kick in. So this I see as a potentially smaller fund, and this is something that you can do. I would like to demonstrate how you can actually take a simple credit card strategy, for instance, and over the course of a year or year and a half, if you're into this type of strategy, this is just getting creative, because what I want to teach you here is you might not have to save completely, like take the savings over to this fund. You might be able to use certain financial strategies, like saving a tax return, saving a bonus from work, saving some overtime for a period of time, or a credit card strategy like I'm going to demonstrate, where you get a credit card maybe every 3 months, once a quarter, so full credit cards a year, which is not crazy at all, and you pick out your mid-tier to higher tier credit cards that you may be eligible for that have great cash back bonuses, maybe no to low annual fees, cards that you can see yourself using, or is a good sock drawer card that you can just get the bonus on and put to the side. Why am I bringing this strategy up? Because believe it or not, you have a multi-pronged benefit to this strategy for your prep or survival fund. Number one, if you do this strategy, and let's just say the average card is somewhere between $250 and $500 in a cash back or equivalent value points rewards earnings, meaning that you can redeem points for travel or some other accommodations in the $250 to $500 range or more. And you're doing this once a quarter, every quarter for maybe 4 to 6 quarters. You can be looking at just that quick, somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 to $2,000 to $2,500 without having to do anything but spend money you are already going to spend, building your credit, and also having purchase protection and possibly having great accommodations in an emergency travel where you might have to book a flight and you have status with that airline, book a hotel, and a credit card that you pick not only gave you the cash or the bonus points to secure a room for a couple of nights, but you have status with that hotel. So think about evacuations. When you have an evacuation in an area, if you're in an area that's hurricane prone, right? This is usually the most common because you know this storm is coming. Now you have thousands of tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people all trying to leave an area at one time and all, trying to hit the same hotels and evacuate to the same regions at the same time. What ends up happening is room availability is terrible and prices go through the roof. Imagine having a credit card, you built this strategy out preemptively, got a bucket of rewards points or cash back that you stashed to the side, and you got a couple credit cards that give you rewards, hotel status in the hotel that you plan to evacuate to. Now you may have precedence and priority over other evacuees when you go to this hotel. Imagine the peace of mind of being able to secure a decent quality room at a decent hotel, partially paid for, maybe even fully paid for a duration of time, and being able to guarantee yourself or give a high probability of securing a room. Any of you who have lived in a hurricane region, anywhere in the South or the East Coast, know what I'm talking about if you've had to evacuate. It is terror to have to not only get through all the traffic, fight for gas, but go so far out trying to find a hotel that actually has accommodation that you actually can afford. Many people end up, elderly people, kids, you guys are trying to squeeze into full-size beds because you had to get this cheap room in some unsecure area or shady area. Imagine being able to get a decent hotel room preemptively, guaranteed status or at least priority status, with the points or cash back already secured. Imagine renting a car and not having to worry about paying that extra couple $100 of insurance over that week or 2 weeks time. You might need that car because you have auto rental collision cover on that credit card. These are the type of things I'm talking about. Packing all these bags up because you don't know how bad the damage is going to be, and you're trying to bring a couple weeks worth of clothes per family member, and you have airline status that allows you to check your first couple bags for free and save nearly a couple $100s in bag fees. TSA pre-check, being able to go through the airport security lounge at a record speed, when you're trying to evacuate if you have to catch a flight. These are the type of benefits and the creative mindset. Another reason why I feel like you need to separate these two emergency funds or emergency scenarios in your finances, not to complicate it, but to be able to put the creativity in place on this end with your prep and survival fund to make this a less stressful experience and a more strategized, strategic set of circumstances, because you can be more sure because you thought all of this out. On the other side, with your income replacement goal, now you put yourself in a position where you don't have to worry about making brash decisions around your career or your income or the accommodation of, around your family's needs with time, because you've taken on a job that doesn't allow you to get your kids back and forth or support your spouse. Whatever the case may be, take care of your elderly parent because you just had to go out and get an income because you ran out of your 3 months or your 4 months reserves because you didn't save enough to accommodate or account for how long you might be out of a job. So I wanted to put this on you guys' mind, again, as a banker, as a financial services professional, not just a content creator. I'm seeing these scenarios play out on a daily basis. I see people who are prepared. I see people who are unprepared. These things ripple out for many months and have detrimental impacts on people, whether they go really well or they go really bad. And I want to bring you the strategies and scenarios to help you think about these things in advance and then lay out a game plan that you can follow or take and at least build out and customize around so you can be in better position going down the line when you're faced with your next emergency. This is JP checking out. I hope this content was valuable for you. I'm pretty sure it was. I enjoyed bringing it to you. Thank you for sticking through on this whole video. Comment down below on your personal experiences around these different emergencies. Comment down below and let us know, have you had successes or failures? What did you learn? What did you implement if it went well? What will you do different if you failed in the past or had a negative experience in the past that you can share with us so we can keep this conversation, this education going? As always, I want y'all to stay focused, stay in motion. I'll see y'all soon.